Hello and welcome to my review of CANDYMAN. Now this has only just been released in the UK, quite literally today. I went out to watch it so I could do my review. I'm going to talk non-spoilers, then I'll give you a big warning, then we'll talk about spoilers. And this will probably end up being quite a long video, because there's a lot to unpack here. Now, I will say straight from the off, the leaks that I gave out were true. Yes. All of it. True. I think there's only one thing which was slightly false. But also 50-50. You could split some hairs over it being true or false, in fairness. But yeah, all the leaks were true. So let's take a look at this objectively, right? Like, this is supposed to be a horror film. Right, if I look at it, it's slated as a horror film. I'm looking at it now. It's a supernatural slasher film. Horror film. I think it fails on that level. It's not very scary. I didn't really feel much tension from Near DaCosta's direction or the writing. This is written by Jordan Peele. It's written by Jordan Peele, but also Near DaCosta as well. And then there's one other individual that tackled part of the script writing. But Jordan Peele has top billing. And yeah, it's not scary. And I will say that the gore and the sort of inventiveness of the slasher killings, I think the initial ones were quite good, but then they're all very repetitive, very, very repetitive, in fact. So I don't think it really succeeds on that level. You know, I watch a slasher film, or at least, you know, I guess a Candyman film. But I watch one of these films for a few things. Tension, atmosphere, bit of fears, bit of the jumps. And then, of course, you know, the gore as well. Like, the gore is part of it, right? And the first one was gory, but then there's a whole bunch of deaths which are just done off screen. I don't know why. Really quite surprising, actually. Quite surprising. Now, Yahya Abdul-Mateen 2... or the second, however you want to say it. He was actually really, really decent in this. Very, very good. And this is an actor that can play quite a good range. So, you know, he was Black Manta, wasn't he, in Aquaman, right? And you might go, why are you mentioning that? Well, I'm mentioning that for a reason, because it's way to the other side of what he was playing in this movie. And that's a good comparison, you know, it's a good range that he's able to hit. And I think he's a good actor, in fairness. I do actually think he's a good actor. I think he did really well in this. The other individuals that did pretty well, Teyonah Parris, who plays Brianna, although it's somewhat pronounced Brianna, which I think there is some subtle referencing going on there. I could be wrong, but whatever. But Teyonah Parris was good. She was pretty decent. And I mean, that was it, really. Now, you guys might be thinking to yourselves, why haven't you mentioned Tony Todd? He said he was in this. Get to that in spoilers. But if you watch my leaks, they're true. Half true, but yeah, they're true. They're true. The opening credits alone actually indicates... well, the opening credits indicated to me that the leaks were 100% true. And again, I want to get into, you know, non-spoilers first, and then we'll touch on the spoilers. So, story. Anthony McCoy returns to Cabrini Green. The projects. The Hood. An area of gentrification. And starts to learn about the Candyman. Now, obviously, that name should ring a bell, ladies and gents. It's the baby from the first film. Not a spoiler. If anyone likes the first film, you'll know this. And he learns basically about his destiny. And because he learns about that, he starts summoning a Candyman. Yep. A Candyman. Not the Candyman. That's important. And people just start dying. And then it wraps itself up nicely at the end with some sort of very heavy-handed nature. Now this film's very heavy-handed with its approach to... very, very heavy-handed with its approach to the subject matter. Now, Candyman was actually really quite clever about it. It did it in a sympathetic fashion. You know, a man that just fell in love. It's sympathetic, isn't it? You know, and you look at it from the time period and obviously the absolute brutality that ensued, and you're like, God, it's just awful. You know, everyone can look at that and go, that's awful. This is not subtle in any way, and it pulls itself apart. So they talk about the projects, they talk about gentrification, Cabrini Green, and they hate it. They're like, well, you know, the white people, literally, white supremacy is mentioned in this film. They bang on about white supremacy, white man built the projects for black people, literally dialogue from the film. And so then what they could do is then get white people to move back in when house prices are low, and then build it up and give people a Whole Foods or something along those lines. And I'm like, I mean, all right, if that's really the message you want to send, sure, I guess. But that only flies with quite a small market. It's not the biggest market, but it only flies realistically with the US market. You know, people in the UK and other parts of the world are just going to look at that and go, really? What? And then they'll sort of look things up and go, yeah, all right, sure, whatever. So it's a bit heavy-handed. The focus on police brutality is very high. So again, they take the original source material, right? Obviously, you know, they take CANDYMAN and they bring it to a modern audience. They're like, right, so what's the modern interpretation of CANDYMAN? Right, well, it's just black people being shot to death by police. Just randomly. And look, as much as that is terrible, you know, it is awful. Some of the lines of dialogue in this film and also the narrative falls apart. So they bang on about this. They're like, oh, well, you've never heard of these names, but, you know, a white woman gets killed and the story lives on forever. Well, look, we've literally just been, we're now, like a year on or however long it's been. A name that's never going to go away now is George Floyd. I mean, that narrative doesn't fly anymore, does it? Especially in the UK when that was all happening, and then there was a little, white girl murdered out on a day out. So these kind of narratives just, again, they're very heavy-handed. But where the narrative pulls itself apart in this film, so they start saying all of these things, right? And it's very much, police are going to kill a black man. That's it. They're just going to kill black people, and white supremacy this, white supremacy that. But Yahya Abdul's Mateen's character is around every single one of the murders, and he's not killed. Like, he's not even pulled in for investigation. And I'm like, come on now, behave. If this is really the narrative that you're looking to, sort of chuck out here, that this guy, that black people just get shot up and murdered, no questions asked, you would have thought Yahya's character would have been killed straight away then. Straight away. Because literally he's around every single person that dies, basically. He's linked to them all. And that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Well, the police only interact with Yahya, as non-spoiler as possible, when a person phones the police up to tip them off that Yahya's done it all, basically. So it is interesting how their own narrative pulls itself apart. Now, a lot of people really like this film, and yeah, more for them, absolutely more for them. But it's very heavy-handed. It's very heavy-handed, and I can't help but think that some of those reviews inevitably, I can't help but think inevitably that some of those reviews have somewhat of a bias. We now live in an era of BLM and things like this, which is, BLM is a political movement anyway. I can't imagine a lot of these reviews or critics are going to want to critique this film. Shush. My dog just going mental there. I can't imagine a lot of these reviews are going to want to critique this film. Much like Black Panther, actually. Black Panther got rave reviews and was a bit of a CGI mess. So there you go. There's my sort of non-spoiler review. It's not scary. It's not a bad film. It's just very heavy-handed. I can recommend it. It's not... In fact, I say all of this. It's not a bad sequel. It's just very heavy-handed. Like, Jordan Peele would be better if he just toned it down. Like, we can all get on board with these you know, these elements that you're weaving in your stories. We could all get on board with them. You know, no one wants to see people shot and murdered left, right and centre. No one does. So we could all get on board with it. But just tone it down a bit. Make it more palatable, you know? Make it a little bit more nuanced, a bit more subtle. Like the first one. It was good. So this one's not terrible. But, I mean, I wouldn't rush out to see it. It's not scary. There's some wonky-ass CGI in this. The scene where Yaya is going up against the mirror and he sees the Candyman. That's a CGI Candyman. And it's wonky. It's weird. It looks weird. And a lot of the deaths being off screen or from a distance. I don't watch a slasher film for the deaths to be not seen. You know, slasher films have very little storyline. I want to watch the murders. And outside of the first ones, where you see, you know, a whole gushing torrent from someone's neck, a lot of it was just done off screen. And that's sad. You know, this could have been really, really good. And just as a quick heads up before we get into spoilers, if you're going into this expecting Tony Todd, don't expect Tony Todd. Right? I've covered this, and I was right. And I'm now going to get to that in spoilers. So here's your spoiler warning. Here's your spoiler warning. And FYI, fuck all you idiots that are just going to sit here and go, you're a racist. Shut up. You literally have the most amoebic level of intelligence just because someone doesn't like or is critical of a film. It's so moronic. You're all imbeciles. Anyway, that out the way. Let's touch on spoilers. So yeah, Tony Todd, right? Tony Todd. Is he in this film? He shows up for all of about 60 seconds at the end as CGI. His face is CGI'd onto Yaya's body. That's it. And his voice. That's it. Massive misstep. They could have easily had him. Because they weave a narrative of the hive of Candymen. Right? Of all these other black people that have been murdered. They're all black people. There's no white people. All these other black people that have been murdered across history have joined the hive of Candymen. It's the whole damn hive. The hive of Candymen, right? And they show one Candyman in particular. Which is... I'm trying to see if they... I don't even know if he's credited, to be fair. Maybe Jameson? No. Or Gil Cartwright. It's a Candyman that was just giving out... He was giving out candy, basically. It was just a bit weird. You know, obviously a bit simple. Giving out candy to kids and stuff. Harmless, but a bit weird. And that's the Candyman that we see. Now, coincidentally, that man, when he was alive, had a hook for a hand. And I'm like, oh, come on now. There's no nuance here. There's no subtlety. What? So he gets killed in cold blood by the police, which he does, and then he miraculously comes back as a Candyman, does he? I mean, where's the subtlety there, ladies and gents? Where is it? Come on. But that Candyman could have been played by Tony Todd. But it wasn't. It was played by someone else, and they missed the trick. They really missed the trick. They just had this guy, you know, nice to expand it, but have some more connection, you know. It's just something. Be a bit more respectful to the original in some regard. And I just felt like it wasn't. Because that guy could have been Tony Todd, but it wasn't. It wasn't Tony Todd at all. It was just some rando that was killed in cold blood by the police. And that's the narrative here. That's the push. It is police brutality, basically. The whole message of this film is police brutality against black people solely. And the whole story comes around because Anthony comes back to the projects, comes back to Cabrini Green. Burke sees him. This is a kid that met one of these Candymen when he was a kid, as per the leaks, and basically is like some weird indoctrinated Candyman lover. Wants to bring Candyman back because he thinks having Candyman back will make people scared of murdering black people again. Yeah, that's it. That's the plan. That's the plan. So he tells Anthony all about Candyman. Anthony goes and summons Candyman and starts, you know, unleashing Candyman on the city, sort of. And then at the end, Anthony becomes a Candyman. Because he gets literally, oh my god, I couldn't believe it. Now I heard this because I had a source that had seen this film. And when I read it, I was like, that cannot be what happened. But my source said, you know, this Burke guy chops off Anthony's hand, shoves a meat hook in it, puts him in a jacket, puts him in a coat, and calls the police because he wants the police to come and murder Anthony for him to then be resurrected to then become the Candyman again, right? So this weird master plan actually comes to fruition, which doesn't make any sense. Why would Burke, someone who's so anti-police brutality, set up an element of police brutality? Fucking what? So anyway, so that happens. The police literally just run in. Anthony is in... This is how heavy-handed it is, ladies and gents, if you stayed this long. Anthony is in Teyonah Parris's... I can't remember her name. The character. Brianna. In her arms, right? On the floor, laying down. The police run in and just shoot him. Don't say anything. He doesn't move. They just run in and shoot him. Several times. Now you tell me that's not heavy-handed. So anyway... And then it gets even worse. It does get even worse. Then, Brianna, Teyonah Parris's character, gets taken into police custody, into a police car, and a detective or sergeant or some cop sits down and says, oh, well, you know, it's just terrible what happened, you know, when he started flailing around and that poor policeman had to unload his clip, you know, blah, blah, blah. That's what happened, isn't it? Basically just trying to say, yeah, you're going to lie for us. Like, for fuck's sake. Again, have some nuance, have some subtlety. And then literally he turns around and says, or what you could be is you could be an accomplice and you can go down for life. So she's like, let me see myself. And then she says Candyman 5 times. Anthony returns as the Candyman, but also not the Candyman. Sort of comes back as Tony Todd a little bit, but also not. So he is as Anthony. Goes, murders all the police, and then for all of about 30 seconds, 60 seconds at the end, Tony Todd's weird, wonky-ass CGI face comes on and goes, tell everyone. And then that's the end. It's not a great film. They've missed the trick here. This could have been great. It's very heavy-handed. I can see why everyone's raving about it. I personally don't get it. It's very heavy-handed, but you know, if that's what you want in your movies, more for you, I guess. But if you've seen it, let me know what you think. This review will definitely get hate. I simply just don't care. It is what it is, you know. Apparently, you know, you dislike one person's writing, and instantly that you know makes you an ist. It's just so pathetic, so pathetic. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below. If you're new here, do hit subscribe. Thanks so much. Take care.